Welcome back to another episode of Sports-Fixx. I am your host, Carson Becker, and we are looking into week 3 of the college football season. We have games scheduled for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this week, featuring some very tough matchups, some top 25 matchups that I'm going to go over. We will look into all the good games this week and a couple of sleeper games that could catch people off guard and be a better game than people expect. To start off, we have number 12 Clemson playing Georgia Tech in Atlanta, a home game for Georgia Tech that could be a good one. Clemson coming off a shaky win at home versus Troy where they were down 16-0 right before halftime. Cade Klubnik has shown some struggles this year. A lot of people thought he was going to be one of the best QBs in the country. He was supposed to be one of the best QBs. Hasn't quite proved it yet, but they play a Georgia Tech team that beat Colorado in week 1. And is coming off that win against Gardner-Webb. Georgia Tech has really leaned on their run game this year with 3 guys already over 100 yards on the ground, including their quarterback, Haynes King. Their top 3 rushers are also averaging more than 6 yards per carry, and they all have over 15 carries this season. So this could be a very tough matchup for Clemson. They're really going to have to lock in and stop that run game for Georgia Tech. It's going to be a lot of option, a lot of inside zones, a lot of kind of trickery to get that run game going for Georgia Tech. And Clemson playing on the road, it's going to get even tougher for them. They're going to have to play better in this one if they want to win. Clemson is favored by 3.5 points in this one, which I think is a great line. I do think Clemson wins this one, but I think it's very close. I think it's like a touchdown game, maybe 10 points towards Clemson. I think Georgia Tech keeps it real close with that run game, and Clemson just really needs to step up on defense and really stop that run game if they want to win this game. Next, we have number 6 Georgia versus number 15 Tennessee in Knoxville, and this should be a great game. Georgia hasn't looked like the dominant team we're used to seeing these past couple years, only beating Austin Peay 28-6. I know they rely very heavily on their defense these past years, where their offense didn't necessarily need to score that many points, but Austin Peay, you're only putting up 28 points. That's gotta be a little bit of caution there. So first chance to prove that they are still a really good team in the SEC, which they are still, but they really need to prove it in this one. Tennessee beat Syracuse in Atlanta in week 1. Hasn't really played anyone, but this could be their chance to show that they are the real deal in this one. So 2 SEC teams trying to prove that they are really good, and they should be ranked where they are. Tennessee playing at home, very tough environment in Knoxville. A lot of implications in this one. SEC matchup, so both teams want to start off SEC play with a win, and both teams know they can't lose too many SEC games if they want to be in that SEC championship game. So look for this to be a good game on Saturday. Georgia is favored by 3.5 in this one, but I think I'm going to take Tennessee, give Tennessee the home field advantage, and take Tennessee in this one by a touchdown. I think Tennessee ends up winning by a touchdown. I think they're just a little too much for that Georgia defense. I think eventually their defense is gonna give up some points, and their offense is gonna have to keep up. I don't think they keep up with this Tennessee team. Give me Tennessee over Georgia. We have another top 25 matchup, which no one expected to be a ranked on ranked matchup at the start of the season, but here we are. USF versus Miami. Miami and Carson Beck looked great this year. They already have a ranked win under their belt, beating Notre Dame at home in week 1. A lot of people thought they would kind of drop off. They wouldn't be as good this year, losing their star quarterback Cam Ward to the draft, the number 1 pick. But Carson Beck, transfer from Georgia, has really picked up the slack, and he has shown that this Miami team can be good again this year, picking up right where Cam Ward left off. They are a very good football team this year, but they're going to have to prove it against a team with a lot of confidence. This USF team is 2-0 with 2 ranked wins on the season. They beat Boise State at home in week 1, 34-7, and Boise State was ranked 25th in the country. Then last week, they beat Florida in Gainesville on a game-winning field goal as time expired. Florida was ranked 13th in the country, and they went on the road to beat that team. So USF could be a real legit team here. They could be that Power 5 team representing the Power 5 in the playoff this year. Look for them. If they win this game, they could really be one of those teams that is not that you're going to have to deal with in that playoff. USF also is only the 4th team in the AP poll history, so since 1936, to have 2 ranked wins in as many weeks while starting unranked. So I hope this is a good game. I hope Miami does not blow them out. And I really want to see this USF Cinderella story continue this week. I hope they go down and beat Miami as well. And I hope they continue to play this well all throughout the season, and we see them in the playoff at the end of the year where they're making some noise and doing some stuff in the playoffs. That would be fun to watch. That would really be fun to watch. Miami is favored by 17.5 at home in this one, and I hope it's much closer, like I said. I hope it's only like a 7-10 point win. I do think Miami wins. I don't think USF can keep up with this Miami team, but I really hope they do. So the next big game we have is another ranked-on-ranked matchup. We have number 16 Texas A&M versus number 8 Notre Dame. Texas A&M hasn't really played anyone yet, beating up on UTSA and Utah State in weeks 1 and 2, so not too much craziness there, but they finally get to prove that they could be another great team in the SEC. They got to go into South Bend, play in Notre Dame for this one. Very tough place to play in a night game, which means I'm sure a lot of people will be watching all over the country. I know I will be watching this game. So Notre Dame, on the other hand, has only played that one game against Miami in week 1, where they did lose 27-24 on a game-winning field goal. And a game they played very well. They did have a bye week last week, so they really have only played that one game. They'll have a lot of rest coming into this one. And their freshman QB, C.J. Carr, who looked pretty good in that game against Miami, will have another chance to prove himself. In that Miami game, he went 19 for 30 with 221 yards and 2 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in that game. So a really good performance for his first career start. And I'm looking for him to do just as well, maybe even better in this one if Notre Dame wants to win this one. He did have an interception in that game, but it was still a great game for him. Notre Dame is favored by 6.5 points at home in this one, and I do think Notre Dame wins this one. I think it's really close. I think it's like a touchdown game, so I think this line is pretty perfect for this game. Look for this to be another great game to watch on Saturday. And the next game I'll talk about would be a ranked-on-ranked matchup this week, but Florida lost to USF last week, so we have Florida falling out of the top 25. But Florida's going into Baton Rouge this weekend. Another great game. Florida coming off that disappointing loss to USF at home. You know they're going to be hungry for a win down in Baton Rouge, especially playing another SEC team. They're going to want that win, but I think this LSU team is just a little too good for them. I don't think they can go down in Baton Rouge and win that one. Florida has one of the hardest remaining schedules in the country, and this is just the start of it. They play they start their SEC matchups, and they just play all the good SEC teams just like back to back to back to back. So they could really have a tough record this year. They could either have a really good record if they play really well in those games, or they could have a really bad record if they lose all those games. But obviously, they'll need to play much better in this one if they want to steal a win in Baton Rouge. LSU, on the other hand, has looked great this year. They went to Clemson week 1 and beat them 17-10. They then played Louisiana Tech and only gave up 7 points there. And that defense has been playing really well all season. And I think that defense has been holding them back a little bit these last couple years. Now that defense is keeping teams at bay, their offense doesn't have to put up as many points. So I think they're looking like a better team because of that defense, and look for them to continue that in this game. I do think their defense plays a huge part in this, and they could be the team to beat in the SEC as of right now. LSU is favored by 7.5 right now, and I think I have them covering that. I have them covering that 7.5 in this one. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. I think their defense is going to overwhelm Florida's offensive line, and I think their offense is going to take it up even more and score even more points in this one. So look for LSU to maybe have a little bit of a blowout against Florida. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's another great game on Saturday, but look for this one to maybe be a little more towards the blowout side. Another couple games I will be looking at this weekend, kind of sleeper games, kind of see how teams play compared to how they played in the last couple weeks. First game, Wisconsin versus Alabama. Obviously, Alabama lost to Florida State in week 1. Very bad loss for Alabama. They didn't look great, but they came out last week and played really well against UL Monroe. So obviously it's like, you played well, but you played well against UL Monroe. So I really want to see how Alabama plays against Wisconsin, who's like maybe not the best team, but still like a pretty good team. I think if Alabama plays pretty well in this one, then they will have a lot of people will see them as having a chance to still go out and win some games this season, which I still think they can. I still think they're a very good team. I think they just had a bad first game there. And so look for Alabama to kind of prove that they are a better team than what they played in that Florida State game. And look for them to maybe put up some big points against Wisconsin if they can. And look for this one to be a little bit of a blowout, which is what I hope for Alabama fans. It is a blowout so they can kind of get a little confidence, get that quarterback some confidence, and really show that they can still be a good team in the SEC. And when they go and play some of those SEC teams later in the season, they're going to have to play really well. So this could really give them some big confidence going into those games. One last game that could be interesting is Vanderbilt going to Columbia, South Carolina. Vanderbilt versus South Carolina. South Carolina is ranked. Couple of teams. Vanderbilt surprised a couple teams last year. They played really well. They ended up beating Alabama. They played like Georgia really well. They did a couple of really good things. They were coming over for a win against Virginia Tech last week where they looked pretty good. So look for them to maybe keep this game closer than people expect. I know the line is pretty close in this one, but they looked pretty good against Virginia Tech last week. And my pick for the Heisman, Lenore Sellers and that South Carolina team has looked pretty good this year as well. Sort of. They looked okay against Virginia Tech, kind of struggled at the beginning. Then Lenore's and Nick Harver connected for like a 70-yard touchdown near the end of the game. So they kind of like bounced back a little bit. Last week they were on a heavy rain delay, so it was kind of like they didn't really play probably necessarily as good as they could have or whatever. But it was just one thing that caught my eye. I saw that Vanderbilt had to go into South Carolina. And another thing that helped me count this game as maybe a sleeper game is the line. The line is only 5.5. South Carolina is only favored by 5.5 at home in this one. So people are thinking that Vanderbilt's going to keep this one close, and I could be getting on that train as well. I do think South Carolina ends up winning this game by at least a touchdown. I do think they end up beating them by double digits, more like towards 10, 14 points. I think they just have a little too much offense for Vanderbilt's defense. But look for Vanderbilt maybe to keep this one close. Kind of watch out for these two kind of sleeper games here. Got a lot of other great ranked matchups that you can watch this week. That would be great games. So look out for those games this week. And if you're more of an NFL fan, you got a game tonight, the Commanders versus the Packers, 8:15 Eastern Time on Amazon Prime tonight, Thursday night. So if you're more of an NFL fan, you got that. NFL obviously on Sunday as well. But that is all for this episode of Sports-Fixx. Please join me on Monday for the recap of Week 3, where I will talk about all these games and how the final scores, how all the teams looked, and how they played. If you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button, and thank you for watching. I will see you next time.